Happy Sunday. I'm coming to you again in a sweatshirt. Apparently, I'm keeping up with my gym promise to myself, which is good. And also, I guess I need to find something more to wear in these videos than sweatshirts. But I did go to the gym today, and I guess one of the good things about it is it helps me do good thinking. And I just had these random thoughts I wanted to share with you today. And one is about self. I think that large part of why I wanted to start sharing some of this stuff is because I had a hell of a time trying to develop self-esteem. I was, as a child, just really hated on myself all the time. And it wasn't really that I got that from my family or, people that definitely loved me. It wasn't a perfect family by far, but I did have a lot of love from my mom, my grandma, and, people that tried to understand me, but they never really did. I mean, it's not even just the queer thing. I didn't really get that back then, but I knew it was different. My mom used to say to me, like, I don't understand why, you're so down on yourself. Like, you have no excuse. And it just made me feel worse, right? Like, if anybody tells anything to you like that, like they don't get you, it just makes you, it's not easy. So it took me a long time. I won't go into the whole story, right? But it's been a journey, and I'll share pieces of it along the way. But one thing was, in my 20s, late 20s somewhere, I'm doing all this therapy, reading all the books at the time. I can't even tell you how many books on self-esteem, but a book doesn't give you self-esteem, but at least you're reading, you're trying to figure it out for yourself. And I don't know why it was this one particular book, but I happened to read Ayn Rand's The Virtue of Selfishness. And Rand is someone I adore in some ways, and I don't support all her views for numerous reasons. But when I read that one book, there was so many things that jumped out to me about the self and how ultimately it's our responsibility to love ourselves and be responsibility for our own happiness. And even though I probably read that 1,000 times in, well, not 1,000 books, but maybe 100 books, it just finally stuck one day. Like, I am the person that has to make myself happy. I am responsible to figuring out what will make me happy. And I'm also responsible for never giving that up for another person. And I've not been perfect at that either, but it really, fortunately, clicked that time when I read that book. And so even though I'm still working on growing it and being the best me I can be, I have my moments. But today I had this conversation with someone today about when you break up with a friend and how I don't think there's that many people that do it. I have done it before, and I did have my first breakup with a friend around that time I made that discovery. It's probably just all the work I was doing then, but it was hard, and it was not comfortable, or it was all bad. But the only good thing out of it was, like, I stood up for myself. I did what I needed to do for me in a friendship where when those people call you and they want to get together and they're like, oh, I don't think I really want, okay, yeah, I'll do it. It was not comfortable or easy for either party, frankly, but it was something I needed to do for myself. And I've been fortunate to only have to do it mildly one other time. I think it's because I learned not to get that far in the first place. So learn as we go, right? But and the few times I've had conversations with people about doing such a thing as breaking up with a friend, a lot of people, it's like a double take, like, what? And so I don't think a lot of people do it. But if you do have a relationship of any kind where you are taking your own personal time and effort and putting it into a relationship that is not making you happy, it's not joyous, it's not doing something for you, and you're just doing something for someone else all the time, then that's a good clue. But it's not something you can do until you really care about yourself. So really, that is the main point. Everything that I probably will talk about in the next year, it just is going to come back to yourself and valuing you. Another thing I've learned along the way that really helped me with difficult times, and continues to actually, when I find myself slipping into worrying about someone else too much, or worrying about what other people think, or varieties of that, is something a dear friend taught me maybe 20 years ago, where I was probably going on and on about not knowing what to do about a situation. And she said, Pamela, just be your own best friend. Just think of your best friend. And anytime that you would want to have a conversation where they were asking you the same questions you're asking yourself, like, what would you tell your best friend? And that was so eye-opening for me, because of course, I think most of us, if we ask ourselves, would never say the hateful, mean, self-deprecating put-downs about our problems, our bodies, our individuality, our queerness, our people that we love. We would just never say those things to people we care about that we say to ourselves. So that sort of ties in with, you have to care about yourself. You have to be your own best friend. I mean, I guess you don't have to be, but if you haven't tried it, I'd suggest it. So as I was thinking of this, I just thought, I kind of have a lot of cliches, but I've turned into my own usefulness. So they may not be the way you've heard them from other places. They're just like, they're part of my Pamelosophy. So your two things today for Pamelosophy is, value yourself and your own happiness above anyone else, because in the end, you're all you've got. And to be your own best friend. And when you find yourself beating yourself up, or thinking you're not good enough, or fearful, or wish you had someone to talk to, just remember you can be your own best friend, and try and think about, if your best friend were asking you this, what would you tell them? Because it's probably good advice. You just need to give it to yourself.